ready? Yep.
What do they call me? My name is Sophia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Coming to you from Cleveland. This is Coffee, founder and host of the radio show here at No Static Radio, BlackAnthropy, where we talk to people, nonprofit organizations, entrepreneurs, and for-profit entities that are impacting the community, individuals' lives, and families by providing knowledge, resources, opportunities, and inspiration. These are a lot of people that I have met as a storyteller and as a freelance journalist. You meet so many people and you're telling a story and you have 800 to 1,500 words. And as you're talking to these people and listening to them, you're realizing their story is so much bigger than 1,500 words, whether it's in a print, newspaper, magazine, or online. So I created BlackAnthropy, and um, today we have a very special guest, Najee Hall. He is a writer, a community reporter, and he is important because this is what is needed, is reporting by individuals from the community who care about the community that people can contact, feel comfortable contacting and telling their stories to about what's going on in the community rather than everybody being drowned out by national politics that is so far away from the struggle that people, and it don't even have to be a struggle, just what you care about day to day. So I'm going to let Najee introduce himself and start out telling us what he does as a community reporter. Najee?
Thank you, Coffee, and good afternoon, Cleveland. Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. So, for me, I'm the community reporter at Signal Cleveland. And so, my role as a reporter is to be in community listening to residents about what's important to them. One of our mantras is what's important to you. And the idea behind community-based news is that we are creating stories based on the needs of the community, meaning it's whatever you guys want to hear about. It's not so much maybe what we, it's not corporate news where you're given, a script to follow and you have to produce this story because they say so. It can be anything that you, all as residents, want to explore. So I'm here to tap into that creativity that I know so many Cleveland residents have, and I'm trying to see how we can best tell our stories on a platform that belongs to us.
All right, so tell us, how did you get started in writing, in reporting? How did you get started?
So in 2016, that was kind of a year that changed a lot for me. We all know we had a huge election that year that produced two very polarizing figures and a lot of violence, anger. People were scared. A lot of grief, a lot of anxiety came during that time, and I just started to feel somewhat helpless. And so my goal was, what can I do here at home? And so I came to discover the Cleveland documentaries because I thought local news is where it starts. Local issues is where this starts. So let me tap in locally to see what Clevelanders are concerned about and talking about. So when I joined Documenters, I just started documenting as much as I can. Due to COVID at that time, I was laid off from my job that I had at the time. So I just had a lot of time to give to the community space and particularly Documenters just keeping up with various committee meetings, how money is being spent, the ARPA funds that came to Cleveland, how that was being allocated. And through there, I was able to just meet different people, and through those connections, I opened different opportunities. So when the opportunity for Signal Cleveland came around, I just, went on a limb and applied and went through the process. And I got a great call one day saying that they had chose me, and here I am now, ready to tell some great stories.
Awesome.
Yeah, so tell us how did you get to be a reporter or a writer, because I started writing, but I, write comedy. And then, I'd write all week. And then it used to be that amateur comedians really didn't have any place to go on like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because you get the big hitters in town. And they basically do two shows Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so I would use that time to write. And so then I would do a lot of local stuff, and then I'd hit, the big clubs. And so I saw, okay, the stuff that I write, it works. And so then it led me to start writing, for the school newspaper and all this other stuff. And then, just so happened that other people saw in me something that I didn't really think about in that way. And so, how did you get into doing, reporting and talking about, these stories? Did you have a background in reporting, in journalism, in writing? What, talk about your background.
Yeah, so my background was actually in criminology and criminal justice studies. So, of course, during the course of undergrad, you're constantly writing papers, regardless of the class, really. So I was always just doing a lot of writing. Similar to what you just shared, I had a professor once who had asked me to stay after class, and she just encouraged me and told me that she thought I was a really talented writer, and had I ever considered writing as a profession. And at that time, I hadn't, but that's when people speaking blessings over you before you even know it. So so I used to just write like in a journal. I had a personal journal that I used to just write my feelings out because I wasn't always the best at expressing myself verbally. So I found solace in being able just to put it on paper and get it out. And I would just write like fantasy stories. I would write my own, just made up stories. I just really enjoyed that. So again, I never really had a particular initial interest in journalism or reporting, but then I learned that through my curiosity, there were questions that I wanted answered that weren't being answered. So I figured, well, if nobody else is going to do it, why not? I just do it myself. So I started asking questions. I started showing up to meetings. I started making myself available, putting myself in the right rooms, and just trying to relay the stories back to the community, because a lot of times people do not necessarily trust media. In my work with Signal so far, I've had people just flat out tell me, I don't trust media, I don't want to speak to you. And that's a very sad thing for me to hear, but I can absolutely understand why one might feel that way. So it's just trying to start at the base level, which is just trust and community building. If people can trust you personally, they can trust you with their stories, they can be vulnerable with you, and those are often what produce the best stories. So, long story short, I used to just journal, the journal to reporting pipeline. That's me.
Okay, yeah, well, again, this is part of why I created BlackAnthropy, because I think sometimes people think that, when you see or hear or read about a person, however you come across them, you think that they have this special gift and they knew exactly what they were going to do and they had this perfect plan and they were lucky and it worked out for them. And it really just happens sort of like you said. It just happens that it was just something in you that you did, and somebody else saw it in another way that was like, wow, you're really good at this, and you really never thought about it like this. And so again, that's what BlackAnthropy is what you already have inside of you. How was that fleshed out of you, right? And so, like you said, that election, a lot of people had feelings and emotions and thoughts and ideas about that, very polarized election. And it's different for everybody, right?
Absolutely. Some people, again, are not as comfortable maybe, speaking what they want to actually say. And that's another reason that I'm really happy to be in this community reporting field, just because I have no problem saying what needs to be said. Luckily for me, I've learned that it's important to speak when you see something, say something. So knowing that, and knowing that I can offer that to maybe somebody who doesn't have that same level of comfort, it's like, how can I help you amplify your voice? Because everyone has a voice, but sometimes people aren't always able to share their experience in a healthy way.
Yeah, right.
That is
right.
not trying to take advantage of them or trying to exploit them for profit or anything like that. So and I also have a background as a community organizer, so I come with just just a natural understanding of trying to organize community and trying to build those relationships with people. But it is all about trust, and it's all about knowing your neighbors. Who are you living next door to? You know, say good morning, hello. Just have conversations. It all starts with a hello, and anybody can do it.
And where are some of the areas where you did community organizing, and what are some of the things that you helped to organize?
So I work for an organization, New Voices for Reproductive Justice, which is on the front lines of reproductive justice. Of course, in lieu of Roe v. Wade, there's a lot of discourse there about that. I'm a member of NAASD, the American Slavery Descendants. We're fighting for reparations for American descendants of slaves. So that's based out of California, but we are currently hoping to build a local chapter here in Ohio soon. And these are all Cleveland-based again. And so just putting those events together, like we've done maternity drives, you know, feminine products, which is a big thing that women are having a hard time affording. And just as we speak to, you know, the plight of American freedmen in this country, you know, we are constantly, in my opinion, we are still not where we exactly need to be, and there's some repair that needs to occur in order for that to happen. So it's just about, you know, centering those conversations, conversations that are bettering our community as a whole, because when we win, everybody wins. And I'm a firm believer in that. So it's just trying to, again, amplify those voices and get the word out.
And again, that's what BlackAnthropy is about. Now, all of this information that Najee just put into what was that 2 or 3 minutes, and that's just the response to that question about community organizing. An 800, 1,500 word article is not going to get all of that in. That's not going to get that in. And to hear someone talk about, you know, again, it's not this crystal clear path that he had. It's just something that was in him. It was something that he exercised, and so, you know, it sort of naturally leads you to the next place in life where you're supposed to be. And most of the time, if you follow the things that are in your heart and that are on your mind every single day, you know, that's what'll happen is you'll have more, you know, comfort, more desire to want to work and help other people because you're doing what you want to do, rather than doing something to pay your rent.
Right, and I would recommend to anybody that has a dream, try not to be too focused on the money too soon, because that'll come with experience and time. But when I first started doing my own version of freelancing, I was making $60 a day. I was broke beyond work. This was just a year ago, you know? And now I'm in a position where I'm much more comfortable, but it was because I put in the time to do that. And I wasn't afraid to fail, and I wasn't afraid to struggle. I understand that we all go through different phases in life, and, you know, sometimes you just don't have the opportunity to do things, or you're not in the space to do things. But to Coffee's point, if it is something that you truly believe in, I promise you the world will come back. It may not be overnight, but it'll come at just the perfect time.
Yeah, and that is just real talk. And again, most news articles, they're not gonna have a person say that, you know, follow your dream and I only made $60. They're not gonna say those things.
Yeah.
You know, and so again, that's what BlackAnthropy is about: is hearing from the people who actually do the work, who have done the work, and who continue to do the work. Now, I do want to say I'm also a documenter, and it was really, you know, what really inspired me to do it is the word that Najee keeps saying, community. Because when I was a kid, I was a news addict when I was a kid. And so by the time I got to my early 20s, I saw how redundant the news had become. And its only thing changed was the people in the story. But they continued to tell the same stories. And so I used to think like, you know, I really stopped kind of watching the news because you can almost predict what they were going to say and what they were going to talk about. And so when I saw community, you know, I understand what that meant because we have gotten to a place, definitely in the last 20 years, where it's all of this national news. You know, 25, 30 years ago, you had way more news outlets. And now, over the last 25, 30 years, there's been this big consolidation in news and information. And it almost forces people to pick a side. It's nothing in there that's knowledgeable because you have to decipher whether or not it's even true and it's factual. And what's the purpose of this? It's nothing resourceful because it seems to be that the objective of the story is to evoke emotion.
Correct.
There's nothing that makes you say, unless you're doing some really deep thinking, what opportunities are available to me from this story?
Right.
Buy a gun so that I can protect myself, so that I don't get killed or shot or my family. And then what inspiration do you really have when you watch the news? Sometimes, very rarely, I have my TV on, but I watch golf. And especially on the weekends, golf comes on, one of the regular network stations. And I'll get, distracted cooking or something. And I'll hear all this chatter. Now, if you ever watch golf, you barely hear the commentators talk.
Right.
And so I'll hear this chatter like, what? That's the damn news is on. And I'll freaking go turn it off. And so, again, when you listen to a community reporter like Najee talk about, this is, what I'm doing, this is why I do it. And then, so when you talk about community reporting, that's knowledge. Like, okay, I really never thought about it like that. It's an opportunity for you to do the same thing. And so now talk about with Signal Cleveland, they created the Community Listening Project.
Right.
And again, 800, 1,500 words is not going to get in what a community listening project is, what they do, how it was set up, why it's set up, and then is it really sticking to what it was set up to do? So please talk about the community listening project, where it's at, and what you and your team do.
Yeah, so the listening team is made up of myself, Marvetta Rutherford, Lila Parker, Lakita Worley, and Tila Patterson. And our role is to be in community, just listening to community members. So we've been to St. Vincent's Hospital. We've been to the Friendly Inn for hot meal distributions. We'll be coming up on a community cleanup here this weekend. Just various things that the community has going on that we try to frequent so we can just meet everyday community members. So the first 3 months of our listening, which was January, February, and March, we were just strictly listening. We've been on the bus, we'll be in churches soon, we're going to be in schools next month. So we're just listening to people from all avenues of life. During this time, we've been collecting surveys that you can fill out online. If you're listening and interested, you can go to signalcleveland.org and look for the community page where the survey is, or you can meet us in community. Our calendar is also posted on signalcleveland.org. But at those events, again, we are just letting people know who we are, letting people know what our mission is, and just trying to build that initial bond of trust and respect that is required to tell somebody's story effectively. So we are now out of our first phase of listening. So we collected the surveys. We're going to be putting that data together here shortly to see, what are the biggest concerns of the community so far. A lot of our work has been based in the central community. That is where, we are starting. But this is a broad Cleveland, because when Cleveland does well, I feel like surrounding suburbs do well. So it all, is intertwined. So if we continue to listen to community members from Central, from Slavic Village, from Tremont, from Ohio City, what you start to understand is we are more alike than we're not. And like I said, I haven't gone through all the data, but just some of the conversations I've had, the concerns are pretty much consistent across the board. Of course, there's some unique concerns for unique individuals and circumstances, but as a whole, I think people understand that we just need to do better in every kind of way. And I think everybody understands that, but isn't necessarily sure how to take that first step. So with this listening team, I think listening and connecting people, like I met Coffee through documentaries, just that connection. And here I am, people are out here trying to do the work. So we just want to build that community within the community so that we can all move forward together.
Right. And, you said something earlier that I wanted to talk about a little bit, which is people don't trust journalists. But we've got to get to a place where it's not about trusting the journalist. It's about informing yourself so that you understand what the journalist is saying, what the journalist is talking about, and where is this journalist coming from telling this stuff? Years ago, I was a news addict. I kind of stopped watching the news. And so a lot of the, uh, you know, Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer's, like a lot of people don't know, like Bill O'Reilly. I mean, he had a completely different platform of telling news and information. So when I saw that, you know, it took me a long time to see that he had gone to Fox News and had this shift. It just made me realize, okay, he did this for the money. So,
Right.
and so it helps you to understand. So I don't have to worry about trusting him. I trust that what he's doing is, for someone to make money, including himself. And so it's not about trusting the politicians or trusting the media or trusting other people. It's informing yourself. And that, again, is one reason why I am so glad that I got into this journalism profession, because it allows me to meet other people and hear the stories that they're talking about, and say, okay, wow, I didn't know that, and that sounds like a pretty interesting issue to me. Everything is not going to be interesting to me. Everybody has a story, though, like Najee is saying. And how many people, how many companies are set up to listen to what other people have to say and act on that? There's not a lot. And not only that, again, Signal Cleveland, and we'll have someone from Signal Cleveland come in and talk, but I want Najee to talk about his experience, right? But Signal Cleveland, again, it's knowledge, you know, what's going on in the community, right? It's resources by reading those articles, telling those stories. It's informing you what resources are available in all of the communities, like Najee just said, whether you're in Central, whether you're on the west side, Tremont, whether you're in East Cleveland, it's telling all of those stories. And it's going to take a while, but if the more people come and read those stories, give their stories to tell, for it to be published, then there'll be more people relying on Signal Cleveland and say, okay, what's this information? And so then, if and when Najee changes, you'll be able to see, okay, what did he change and do? If and when, he starts his own, media platform, you'll understand what he's talking about and be able to trace it back somewhere. So it's not about trusting Najee. It's about what is he talking about? Where did he come from? And in 5, 10 years, what is he doing? What, with all of that he learned, right? What Najee is talking about, it's not, again, like he had this perfect plan to be at a particular place. He's still navigating that. I mean, look at the challenge that they're having with the listening project. Just listen, go to all of these events, and then you're working the plan as you go, right? Because you don't know what people are going to say, and you've got to figure out what are the stories we're going to tell and how, right?
Right. And it's important for me to show up. Something that I talk to the team about is just showing up as a person sometimes before showing up as, Najee the reporter on the listening team. Because at the end of the day, I'm still a part of this community too. And when it fails, I fail too. So I just want to see nothing but success for everybody. I think it's enough for everybody to be successful. And I think that by continuing conversations, talking to people, putting yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, the risk is worth the reward. I can just tell you that. And the feedback has just been great so far. Like I said, of course, you're not always going to get perfect scores, but all in all, I think we are headed in the right direction. And are still starting up and getting our wheels going. So we appreciate everybody's patience as we still continue to grow and roll out and produce excellent content for the city of Cleveland. But we definitely want to just encourage community building, particularly this summer when it'll be beautiful outside and we can be outside. We have a chance to meet each other and we can highlight stories. And another part of that is, like we spoke about earlier, Coffee, all news isn't doom and gloom all the time. It's not just shootings and murders and kidnappings. Yes, those things do happen, but there are a number of leaders, a number of young people, a number of older people who mean well and who are doing well in this community. And so one of the main goals is I want to highlight those voices, give them their flowers while they're here, and share, what kind of wonderful things that they are doing to make the lives of everyday Clevelanders better.
And it's so much of this going on. A lot of these people I, have invited to be on the show and will continue to reach out and get more and more people on BlackAnthropy because, something that I've thought about over the last 20 years is every year in February, when we celebrate Black History Month, we're still going back all the way to the 60s, to the Civil Rights Movement. And we're still talking about slavery and all of that. And those things are important. But what is being missed is as if we're stuck in that time and as if there are not people all around this country, all around the world, in and across Cleveland and Ohio that are doing things. And we think that we have to celebrate Martin Luther King and them every year. And it's like there are so many people doing so many things. But again, without there being community reporters, without there being newsrooms saying we're going to focus on other things. And if you go to like signalcleveland.com, if you go to documentaries.com, you will see that there's Cleveland Documentaries has over 600 reporters. And all of those stories aren't about who got shot, stabbed, killed, raped, and beat. They're about the things that affect you, such as the city council meetings. What is going on? A big thing we covered through March was the budget,
Right.
the city budget.
Right.
Talk about your experience covering the city budget and some of the things that stood out to you with that.
Well, it was a long process. If you're listening, you watch, it was a long haul, but we got through it. But I learned how money was allocated. I learned what it takes to come before the council and request money. I learned that there's a legislative process. There's checks and balances of government, how that works. Civics is something I don't think is taught enough, and I think if you kind of dive into the documenter's life, you can kind of get a refresher course. I know some people may have taken it when they were younger, but I'm not sure if it's still in school now. But from my experience, people don't really know how a civic process works. So everything just isn't necessarily the wave of the mayor or the wave of a council person individual. It's a collective body that comes together to make decisions. And when the body is not able to come together on behalf of the people, which is what, in my opinion, we see at a national level too much, we suffer while they continue to profit off of our backs. And that's just not right. But the budget hearings, what's coming up in Cleveland, exciting things. I do think this city has the potential to be just so great. And I think that we're heading in the right direction, but we do have to understand that things take time. And I was somebody who maybe didn't always understand that maybe as clearly as I could have, but during these budget hearings, I definitely have a new respect for it. It does take time, and you want to make sure you're doing it the right way instead of just jumping the gun and having to go back and clean up.
And what you learn, again, by just ended up in this journalism space is that, you just think of City Hall. Do people really understand how many committees make up City Council? And all of these different city planning commission, the City Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the City Landmarks Commission, the City's Commission on Mental Health, and all of these things.
Public safety.
Yeah, you have all of these things, and the people that work for the city that run these programs, they come before the city council members in the different committees and talk about the programs that they're doing, why they need money, why they want this, how it's going to be used, how it's going to affect Cleveland. When you see the bike lanes, all of that and all of these simple things. And so again, when you're, you know, watching the news about who got shot, stabbed, killed, beat, raped again today, and not keeping up on what impacting you, that big, what happened in March is telling you over the next year, the next 2, 3 years, that budget, some of those things are for things that we will see new in Cleveland this year, next year, and the year after. But being in tune with City of Cleveland, who is concerned with community and local news and information that people need to know, in addition to national news, is just so important. And again, when you see that, you almost are not focused again on should I be trusting this journalist, right? Because you're looking like, I didn't know that, right? You know, what are, like for me, covering City Planning Commission and the Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, I really like covering those because I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize this was a thing in Cleveland. I've been here since like '98, and I'm like, I didn't even really realize this. And every, twice a week, twice a month, I cover, I do like 4 meetings a month, and you listen like, okay, yeah, okay, that's happening, that's going on, and then all of the things that people have to go through to get their projects or whatever it is approved, and they have to describe them, define them, how much is it gonna cost, how is it gonna benefit the city, and all of these things, so that when you end up seeing these new things, it's not that it just, whoosh, it's a lot of planning and stuff that goes into it.
And anything that you're seeing that is relatively new likely came first before the body a year or two prior. So like you say, it's not just we meet on a Monday and it's done on Friday. And so being tuned in, like Coffee said, to the real everyday, who affects my neighborhood and what it looks like when I walk outside my door. Those are the decisions that are being made at city council, not so much at the national level.
Right.
And if people just tuned in locally more, there's just so much, people power has so much power. And when we look at any kind of mass movement in this country where we've seen change, it wasn't because the government decided to do right, it was because the people said enough. And by proxy, the government had no choice but to act right.
I remember when I was in law school and taking common law, constitutional law, and it was so funny. This one professor, he used to always say, Republicans, they did a lot for black people. He used to say this every class, and I sat there like, this man act like white people just said, you know what, we should stop doing this. It's because people marched, because people got involved, people demanded the change, they requested the change, and everybody doesn't do every role. Even when you march and stomp, well, I don't feel comfortable writing and doing all of that, but I'll march and stomp. And then, well, I'll write, but I don't feel like marching and stomping. And it's like, no, that heat and pressure is what made them change. And again, you come to the city council meetings, and you don't even have to go physically to them. A lot of these are streamed live on YouTube.
Yeah.
The city council has their own website.
And on channel
20, TV 20.
Yeah.
And on YouTube, like everything else, you can go back and watch it at another time.
You sure can. You take your time, I know sometimes it can be overwhelming, especially when you're trying to learn the different language that is used, which is why, again, I would encourage anybody who is trying to step into that field to check out the documentaries. They break down all the language. We have a glossary of terms that break down like legal jargon to just put it in plain man's terms so everyday people who may not have experience in government can understand exactly what's happening, because people sometimes do get lost in translation. But we break it down, we make it simple, and we encourage you to get involved. And it is a paid gig, so it encourages you to be involved, and you can get a few dollars in your pocket, which can always So again, anybody with an interest, I would highly, highly recommend Documenters. And once you do it, you're gonna find that you just almost can't stop. You know, it's almost addicting because you just like, what's gonna happen next week? Or I wonder, when they was talking about that a month ago, I wonder what the follow up is on that. You know, and it causes you just to be, exercise your civic duty a little more beyond just voting.
And especially in this time where we have a lot of people taking advantage of whether it's work from home, whether it's the flexibility of working for some of these companies where you work the hours that you can, doing delivery or whatever it can, whatever service that they need, whatever fits, your schedule, your comfort zone. That's the great thing about Documenters and Signal Cleveland. You can go to those meetings, you can do note taking, and just sit and they give you an agenda. The city council, different committees, each one of them have an agenda, and you can just follow along and listen to what they're saying, and then you can do note taking and do a summation of the meeting. And or you can do what I started to do, which was live tweeting to get myself in the social media space. And when you do that, though, you got to be paying attention because you got to be, like Najee is saying, you need all of this stuff that Signal Cleveland has put together to help you succeed. Again, just from the 3 years that I've been doing journalism, 2 years, I think it's about going on my third year doing journalism. It's just made me really see how serious, planned, and prepared Signal Cleveland is to really put the community first in this journalism. Because like you said, that all of those materials on what the city council is, what the committees do, defining them, describing them, making sure you have the agenda. And so, like he said, when I did live tweeting, I didn't know a thing about Twitter. And I did it, and I don't think Doug was too happy with me. But my goal for that was just do it, and then you'll figure out all of the things you did wrong, and then those things will be corrected.
Absolutely. And again, no matter what you do, it's just about taking that first step. You just can't worry about, well, am I going to mess up? Because you're going to mess up. That's just human nature. That's who we are. That's natural. But it's about the aftermath. Did you learn from it? And what can you do to make sure that it doesn't happen again? So we encourage you just to dive in. And, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to speak perfect English, but the point of Documenters is that you're relaying information to the community in your own words. And that is so important to have, because my words may not translate to certain areas, so it's important to know who's, what neighborhood you're speaking to, and having people from every neighborhood to speak, I think, is nothing but a bonus.
And this was something that, I was kind of talking about earlier. BlackAnthropy is intentionally biased. I'm not going to have someone on here that is opposing Najee. I'm not going to have someone on here that is opposing Signal Cleveland and Documenters. The bottom line is you can listen to Najee and be like, I don't want to hear what he's talking about. And that's enough. You don't even need someone here to contradict or, shoot down anything he says. And then you're going to have people that say, wow, that's interesting what he's saying. And so BlackAnthropy is intentionally biased to bring out, again, the knowledge, resources, opportunities, and inspiration that it exists, but is overshadowed by, the race to the bottom. And, Signal Cleveland, and even your experience before that, community organizing, when you get in those spaces, people welcome you and embrace you and help you.
Yes.
And it's not a matter of failing or not doing good. And then even when people see that you're uncomfortable, they pull you to the side and work with you.
Yeah.
And these are the places and the spaces that, whatever your interest is, you will be in that type of environment. Talk about it from like your, lived experience. Because that's what I've had.
Right. Yeah. So, like I was saying before, when I was younger, I wasn't the best at like expressing myself verbally. So I couldn't have imagined being in an organized space where you constantly are dealing with people all the time. But when people see you making efforts to do right, generally you're going to get a lot of support from that. And even then, more resources will come your way. You'll meet more people, more opportunities
Yep.
will come
Yep.
because people want to see you doing well. And we're in this together. So you got to keep passing that torch. So if you see somebody trying to do the right thing, I think it's important that we make an effort to support them. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everything that they say. We're all individuals, and that's our divine right to have opinions. But I do think that we can come to a general consensus of right is right and wrong is wrong. And when somebody is doing right, especially in this day and age, we need to rally behind them and just love on them, support them,
Yep.
and amplify them.
I was listening last week to a story about the non-disclosure, non-compete agreements. And again, you're not gonna see that here. Because, when you have a rock solid organization, when you put the right foundation in place, when you're not afraid to, show people how to succeed, there's always, there's going to be people beating down the door. It's almost going to be the reverse of a non-compete agreement. We're going to almost want Najee to leave and do something else so that we can let somebody else in and take advantage of that opportunity, and then help Najee in the next place and space that he goes to, using all of this information that he has learned. And when you do that, also, everybody isn't going to do it, but Najee is going to probably feel more compelled, more, inclined to help other people.
Absolutely. And, I didn't necessarily, coming into this writing, journalism, reporting space, I didn't necessarily have a mentor, anybody who I personally knew who was doing that. And that is something that I wish I would have had at some point. So if anybody is listening and wants to get involved, you are more than welcome to email me at Najee, Najee, at signalcleveland.org. Or we have office hours at the Sterling Branch Library every Tuesday from 3 to 5. They're open house style, so you can come in and we can talk. Even if writing isn't your passion, I think there's still a space. I'm fortunate enough to now be learning about so many resources that can start you off. So if you have a dream or something you want to do and you just want to get started, I feel like Signal is an extension of that too. Like you said, coffee community success. And like I said, I want to see everybody win. So if anybody, again, would like some pointers or anything like that, I would love to have a conversation with you.
And then the other thing too is, when you get in those spaces, you meet so many people with so many different backgrounds. And again, in those spaces, people are trying to say, well, no, I can't help you with this. I can't. Before you got here, a little bit before you got here, um, I was talking with our producer here, Miss Marie. And again, just talking about different things that I'm doing, she was like, you need to talk to these people, these people, these people. And so she doesn't feel threatened or intimidated that I'm going to get something or do something that, she isn't doing or she can't benefit from. And you just got to get in those spaces. And then again, all of these things of not trusting news, journalists, politicians, different people who you don't even know. They don't really become important to you because now you're focused on something completely different, and it's your own self-development. And what are all of these opportunities out there for me, and where can those things lead to? I mean, like when I first started writing with Tri-C, and I think Jimmy Israel asked me, what did I want to accomplish from this or something? And I said, I want to write screenplays. And he's like, oh, that's perfect because most journalists are the ones who write screenplays. Now just think if I wouldn't have felt that comfort in myself and not trusted him and not shared that with him. And so he's the one constantly pushing me to write and write and write and write. And it's only helping me. And the thing is, it helps you because you learn to write for different formats. Like I started out saying, I was writing comedy. What's a different structure for writing for comedy, right? And with comedy, since it's live and in the flesh, and the point of it is to make people laugh, you have to have that flexibility to be able to do that.
Right.
Then when I'm writing for the school newspaper, the student newspaper. So again, even if you go to a college, a university, take one class, they have multiple newspapers at the school. They have multiple media outlets. And just by getting in that environment, like I said, Jimmy Israel, at least once a week, was sending me something. Look into this, look into this, look, that I had never even heard of. You could be here in Cleveland your whole life and never hear of these things.
Right.
But at the same time, like you're saying, being there, people being in the community, just being as yourself, but also being as a journalist so that people just see you as just a regular person here at the event. But then they get that comfort of, let me ask him something.
And that's exactly what it is. They know me as a person, and it's just like, oh, he just happens to be a journalist. So while he's here, let me A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's the idea. And like one of the points talking about earlier is everybody has a role. You don't have to be on the front line. A lot of the work, whether it be community organizing or journalism, is behind the scenes. You have editors, you have producers, you have people who are gathering information whose names you may not see, whose faces you may not see, but they are integral to this work, and it can't be done without them. So there's a role for everybody. Don't feel intimidated, and speak up. That's the best advice I can give anybody. I'm 31. I'm young. One of the greatest things that has changed my trajectory is just speaking up and making my point of view known. You don't have to be rude about it, but just be confident in what you say and be able to stand on it. So I think again, anybody wanting to get involved, just take that first step and don't be scared. I promise you it'll work out.
Yeah, it will. I mean, and a lot of people in a lot of different age groups are seeing this, are having the same feelings and thoughts about the way news and information is. Again, before we got on the air, uh, Najee, Marie, the producer, and myself, I was asking them, have they heard about Legal Words and Unveil? Again, all of this, now that does stem from this national news of seeing people get, the injustice on the news. And a lot of it, the Unveil Project. And, you can go to Unveil, you can search them, Unveil on your own. UNBAIL. And again, this organization, when you look at their website, you can tell that they clearly are not this big, massive organization. That these people did like me. I don't have this beautifully designed website yet. These people said this is a problem, that the whole reason black people are getting shot, stabbed, killed, and beat by the police is they stopping them for minor traffic violations. And so Unveil was like, okay, the first thing we're going to do is help these people, because you don't know the legal system like that. Like you said, people are intimidated by it, they're uncomfortable with it, they don't trust it.
Right.
And so these people have set up this program for all kind of things. Help people get their license back. Not only get your license back, but your driving rights, your driving privileges back, right? And they help you get pardons, right? They help you get things expunged from your record. What does expunge mean, right? And the thing too, like what Najee was saying, and what like I learned with writing and Jimmy Israel is, people are going, when you do it, people are going to explain to you what you're doing, different ways to do it, and the ultimate goal is for you to have that foundation and then you do it your way. And so that Unveil, they don't have this massive project. They just have a group of people who came together and said, we got to do something about this. And they put together this program. They're going to meet with you and see what it is that you need so that, again, over time, this, all of these excuses that we hear in our society for why things are like they are, you got different pockets of people working to minimize them. So now, when you have the Unveil Project in Cleveland, then when you have Najee and his team doing community listening, and we see Signal Cleveland sees the effect of that. Are people still saying they having problems getting stopped by the police for minor traffic violations, right? So then again, Unveil, since that's what their program is, then they say, how do we change it to incorporate this? Right? Legal works. It's the same thing, helping people with criminal cases because again, we all find ourselves in situations. Some of us are lucky, some of us are unlucky. A lot of things we do when we're young, we end up in a litigious situation where some people they're able to escape and it never catches up with them. And so then you don't go to court, then you don't do all these other things, and you say I can't get a job, and blah blah blah, and then you have a kid, and then you say, well, I'm taking care of my kid. It ends up becoming this vicious cycle. And so again, community news, community reporting um, helps people to say, okay, there is a way for me to contact someone to get help. When you go to Najee, he's gonna help you and explain to you what to do. When you go to Unveil, don't feel like, well, okay, I kind of understand what expunge means, but what does expunge mean? You know, I don't care what I'm doing. I always ask, what does that mean? Because I want to make sure. The first question I asked Najee was, what is community reporting? What is community listening? I can have my own meaning and definition, and there could be different ones, but how are you using it, right? Because that's what's important. And so, um, you know, uh, what do you think about like the Unveil project and then like the Legal Works projects?
I think those are great initiatives, and to the point that you made, those all started not from the government, not from anybody, but just people getting together on their own accord who understood that we had a problem that was turning into almost a pandemic of itself, and that we had to do something about it. And so, community, whether it be Unveil, Signal, Documenters, Legal Works, community is the nucleus of all that. Without the people on the ground, boots on the ground, pounding on the pavement, without those kind of people, um, these projects wouldn't stand a chance. But when you're in tune with community, you're able to know these things. But like we were talking about earlier, I didn't know that legal works was even a thing until Coffee told me about that. And I even consider myself, somebody who's supposed to be somewhat plugged into the community, and I still didn't even know. So that just lets me know that there's still work to be done. We still need to go harder as it goes to relaying information to you guys and letting you know what resources are out here. But I can tell you there are people who genuinely want to help you and genuinely want to see you do well. So if you tap into any of those networks, you will be more than taken care of.
Yeah, and again, that's what BlackAnthropy is about, is bringing these programs and putting them under the black light and saying, tell us who you are, what you do, why you do it, and how people can get in touch and take advantage of these programs. And again, you don't have to, some of these you can, work, see if you can work and get paid. Some of them you can volunteer. Some of them are an opportunity just for you to learn, for you to be in a space to get connected and, to other people to do things that you want to do. With all of this, again, you got these different organizations started. What are people doing, right? How do you start these things? They're not very complicated. When you have an idea, you've got to find like-minded people to help you with your idea. And now, just like with the community reporting, you have so many organizations. It kind of reminds me of years ago to invest. It was almost like this exclusive club. They used to have in some places you had to have $100,000 to invest, some 50,000. And over the years, it came down lower and lower. And now you can invest with like the change from a purchase at the grocery store, right? And that's the same way grants have become for uh, the nonprofit sector. They said, okay, we're going to give grants, give you just a little bit. Some are just $1,000 grants. And these grants, they've also recognized that sometimes people don't even really know that this is a nonprofit or for-profit, and the process to become a nonprofit is just so long. You gotta go to the state, get articles of incorporation. You've gotta have the right language in your articles of incorporation if you're gonna be a charity. And in some cases, to be a 501c4 social welfare organization. If you don't, and then you go to the IRS to request exempt status, then they'll tell you, well, you have to say this in there. Now you gotta go back to the state to request an amended articles of incorporation, pay another fee, that takes more time. And what I like that these organizations are doing now is they're saying, even if you're a for-profit, if you have a good idea that's going to impact the community, we're gonna help you get started.
Right.
You know, and the thing that I like is like when you look at the application package, you shouldn't feel overwhelmed. When you look at the application, what they're asking, it's really a moment of reflection to say, okay, let me, you know, get focused here and take this opportunity serious.
Right. And hone in on that message, you know, and like you say, it's just a review. Is this what I really want to do? Am I doing the right thing? Is this something I believe in? Because you have to believe in it for it to be successful. But as, like you say, when the grants come in and you're able to produce events that positively impact the community, you know, more comes after that, more successful come after that. And that's how you're able to build your profile within the community and most importantly, build the community itself. You know, I don't, you know, me personally as a team as well, we don't want to come in and use anybody in Cleveland for just their stories, for their access, for who they know. That is not what we're about. We are about, you know, doing the right thing and telling the truth in media, you know, which like we touched on earlier, all this tribalism we have, you either left or right, you know, we have billions of people in the world. It's ridiculous to think that we can fit all these people into two boxes in any kind of sense, you know. So I think just like you said, the grants are a great way for nonprofits to get that first step. Or if you're anybody who's interested in starting a nonprofit, like Coffee said, it's a lot of red tape, a lot of paperwork. But once you sit down and go through it, it's not bad. It's just a lot of paperwork, but you can get through it, and it's just stuff that you'll know yourself, or you can easily find out. So I would highly recommend anybody who has a vision in that regard to check out what kind of different grants are out here. But they're definitely giving away money, y'all. So if you have a plan, propose it, write it down, have it formal, and present it, and somebody will hear you out.
Yeah, and the thing is, look what you learn from that. And just because you don't get a grant or your application isn't approved, you know, very quickly to get exempt status from the IRS, that's just giving you the right to tell people you can claim a charitable deduction. You could still operate your organization as a nonprofit, just like a for-profit, you know. And then by taking these steps, that's how you learn. And then whatever field or industry you're in, like I said, you know, you start to meet these other people, and then you just constantly learn different things, and that helps your business grow inch by inch. You know, because you really don't want it to get too big too fast, because then you lose focus and all these other things. And now, if you try and go and get the return done, you got all this stuff going on. You got to pay all these fees to get the return prepared. Then when you go next year for grants and stuff, you got all of this different stuff going on. So the more staying small for a period of time until you're naturally ready to get to that next level, is really important. Again, when you look at all of these organizations that are giving away money, they have them by category. You know, health, right? You know, education.
Racial justice, like we do the reproductive rights. It's children, working with children, any kind of thing, feeding the homeless, hungry, clothing them. Like Coffee said, there's all sorts of divisions for it. So there's an avenue for anybody who wants to be involved, for sure.
Yeah, and people have a lot of different kind of interests, and so you get in these things, you start filling out this paperwork, you start learning how it goes, then you're kind of ready the next time. But again, it doesn't keep you from doing the things that you are passionate about or driven to do, or think that you have an interest in. You're going to learn either way it goes, and so well. I think this was a good conversation because I like that, you know, we really got in some conversation on community reporting, community news, and we need to start paying attention way more to our local and community news seeing who these people are that are putting this information together, and again, using your own accord to say, what's the purpose of this information and how can it help me? And then what opportunities are available to me? And like Najee talked about, you can write for Signal Cleveland. You can become a documenter, make you some money on the side, learn you something that doesn't require a lot of physical output, get a lot of assistance, guidance, and direction, and help you in a lot of different ways.
Right. And another point to add to that, we want to make the point to you all, please, please, please hold us accountable when we fall short of your expectations, because if I'm making a commitment to you, I have an obligation to follow through on that. So when I fall short, or anybody from the team falls short, that's a loss for the team, and we've let the community down, which is entirely unacceptable. So we're here for accountability too. So if something we report that wrong or anything like that, please, please, please feel free to call us out. Transparency is key. So we want to learn too. We don't have all the answers. We're still, like I said, this is a relatively new organization as well. So we're still rolling out, and we're still hitting some bumps along the way. But we come in good faith. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
I just want to, can I tap in on something you said? What a lot of people don't know, and I'm glad you said it because it's really important that you said. A lot of people don't know that when they look to start a nonprofit organization, they look to have to file for the 501c3 or C4 and stuff like that. A lot of them don't know that, they can do without that and still be an organization.
Yep. Because if people aren't going to be donating money to you and looking to claim a charitable deduction on their tax return, go ahead and continue to operate your organization.
Okay.
Because they also tell you, sometimes the application, it has in there 3-4 years of financial information.
Okay.
So give yourself that space to build that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And again, a lot of these organizations like St. Luke's and them, they're saying, what are you going to do and how is it going to impact and make the community better? And then these organizations are saying, we're not going to be going through this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 month process. We're going to meet and we're going to look at the applications and give people the money in 30 days. And so, again, I'll continue to have on here guests like Najee in his individual capacity, what it means to be a community reporter, different things that, people are doing to impact the community, provide knowledge, resources, opportunities, and inspiration to other people. That's what BlackAnthropy is devoted to. And one last time, Najee, tell us how we can find you on the internet, social media.
Yeah, so my Twitter is NJHDocumentary91. My email address is Najee, like the saxophone player, NAJEE @signalcleveland.org. If you, like I said, email me to talk about anything. We have weekly office hours at the Sterling branch, which is on East 30th, from 3 to 5 p.m., where, again, we just, it's open house style, so you don't necessarily have to make an appointment. You can just come in. It's usually myself. Sometimes there's other members of the listening team there, but there'll be somebody there for you to speak to, whatever issues or concerns you may have. But again, we want to know what's important to you, Cleveland, and we are here to tell you stories. So I look forward to chatting with you all very soon.
All right, then. That'll be it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, then.
Right. Yeah. Informative. I feel like we got good information up there.
Yeah, that's how we do. Like when we do an article, we ain't getting all of that there.
No way.
So,
No way. You really need to follow a video or podcast or an article.
and that's sort of like why I report it, because what I'm things that you talk about, so people don't have to watch an hour long video, put it in a clip, so that what people say about this or whatever, it's really just watch a clip too. That's important.
Right.
My back is strong. What you think, Marie? What you think, lady producer?
Really good. Really good.
Inflicted again.